Hey, Dee, I have peppers on my jalapeno pepper plants, and guess what?
Let me guess. Do you have banana peppers?
No, jalapeno gate
What?
has bypassed my garden.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I have banana peppers running out my ears. I don't have a single jalapeno. And my son went to the regular store to buy jalapenos for something he was making. And he goes, Mom, there were no jalapenos in the store. And I said, jalapeno gate.
Yes. Well, I picked 2 jalapeno peppers the other day, and I thought we must report in because even the garden professor's blog, they're reporting on jalapeno gate. It's a big deal.
It's a very big deal. So, you know what he did, Brennan?
What?
He did serranos instead of jalapenos. They have the same heat almost, and it works.
There you go. All right. Well, let's get started.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Garden Angelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana, where I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
And I'm Dean Ash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden on several acres out in the country.
We call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening and we want others to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. Tell me about your garden, Carol.
All right, I'm going to tell you about my garden. First of all, I'm picking jalapeno peppers.
I'm jealous.
But then, it's like, where does the week go?
Right?
I have picked squash, green beans, peppers, zinnia bouquets. I've mowed, I've watered, I've fertilized containers on Friday. I texted my sister Friday to see if she wanted to trim shrubs over at her son's house, which we traditionally do. And she happened to be off work. And so we went over there in the afternoon when it wasn't hot. And
that's nice.
We got everything all, it's not perfect, but as we said, it's better looking.
Good. Sounds great. Want to hear about mine?
I do. I saw some pictures of yours. Gosh.
Well, that was yesterday. So we're recording this on a Sunday for a change because I have something to do tomorrow. And so on Saturday, Bill and I worked so hard. First, he got me all the stuff to fix my sidewalk that's been broken since the last big rain. It's that same spot I've had trouble with, but we think we have figured out what the deal was. Not only did we have a mole, but that's where the old septic line ran for the original mobile home that was on this property when Bill was 20.
Oh.
So all that sand, even after the mole was gone, all that sand kept going down that pipe, but we didn't know it because that area wasn't exposed. And when I went to take all the bricks out of it yesterday, I looked and I said, oh, well, this explains what the problem is. So we capped the septic line. And then and then I started putting it back together. And people ask me who works here. Me and Bill and I.
I saw.
We work hard. So nobody's going to see this because it's on my stories if you haven't seen it already, but I fixed the sidewalk. And then we went down the street and bought a new weed eater because 2 of our children have our other weed eaters. So we bought ourselves a new one.
Hey, Mom, can I borrow this? And then it never comes back.
It never comes back. I don't know how this happens. So I weed eated the area where the barn used to be and Bill mowed because I had to weed eat around the stumps so you could see where not to run the lawnmower. And our plan is this next week is to get someone to come in and, grind the stumps, but that's just a plan. What else did I do this week? I deadheaded. I made some videos. I walked around and, did some weeding, harvested tomatoes, harvested hateful banana peppers, which I got to say, I hate banana peppers. I've never liked them.
Tisk.
Oh, well. Anyway, that's all. So shall we move on?
We shall, but I would like to say that I have a bazillion tomatoes, but they're all green.
Oh, well, mine are reds and yellows, and you don't have any black strawberry yet, do you?
No. I mean, I've got a lot of green black strawberry.
Which are kind of silvery. They're really a pretty tomato from the beginning to the ripening, because in the ripening stage, they're just gorgeous. I made a beautiful tomato salad with mine this week.
I should say I am getting Sun Dipper from the plant that I got from Burpee. The seed ones that I grow, they have peppers, listen to me, tomatoes that haven't turned yet. And I think I told you some time ago that Sun Dipper was red. It's actually an orange color.
Yeah, it is kind of orange because I've seen it. I've seen it online. This year I did 4 types of cherry tomato, which I've never done before, but I wanted to be able to create those salads that had the different colors.
Right.
And I did.
Right.
Grew Snow White, Black Strawberry, Brad's Atomic Grape. And then one wasn't supposed to be cherry, but it just is.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what it is. It's just a reddish orange cherry, which is what reminded me of Sun Dipper.
All right. Now we're going to do plain favorites.
Yay. What's your favorite?
So my favorite is I went out this morning to check my rain gauge, as one does. And I suddenly started taking pictures with my iPhone in that portrait setting. And I remember the first time
I love that.
I saw you take a picture in the portrait setting, how beautiful it was. And that actually back in 2019 made me upgrade my iPhone so I could have that feature. So I just took all kinds of pictures and I put one on Instagram, and I used the magic of Instagram to put a hummingbird in the picture, and it really looks good.
It does. It looks so good that when you first look at it, you think it's real, that hummingbird is drinking out of that salvia.
Yeah.
But no, you had to fess up because people really did think it was real.
Well, I thought it was obvious that it wasn't real. And then I thought, oh, I better make it more obvious. So I updated the description that says hummingbird added after I took the picture. So anyway, what's your favorite?
Well, right now it's my bronze fennel, and I did a video about black swallowtail caterpillars on my bronze fennel that did really well on Instagram. And the cool thing is, I mean, people can go look at it. We can link to it. Black swallowtails are the state butterfly for Oklahoma. So I got to kind of educate people about things you can give them other than dill, because that, I have to say, that is one of the most common questions on my blog, on everything that I do every year, on every butterfly page I'm on, is what is eating my dill, right? And it's black swallowtails. And so I moved a bunch of those caterpillars off my dill onto my bronze fennel. And the bronze fennel right now is behind a group of zinnias that I just plunked into an empty spot.
Yeah.
That's the prettiest picture I have in my garden right now.
Cool. Is it on Instagram?
I'll put one on my story soon.
Cool.
I don't know if it's on Instagram. It might actually be on my blog. I don't know. Anyway, whenever I go out there, that just makes me really happy. That combination, the fact that I'm able to feed them, all those things.
Very nice. All right. I am going to do a quote, and we're going to talk about a flower. When the world wearies and society ceases to satisfy, there is always the garden. Minnie Aumonier, 18th century poet.
That quote reminds me of something. I was listening to I was looking at Heather Here She Grows on her Instagram, and she talked about her mother. And her mother has really bad, uncontrolled high blood pressure, and they've tried everything to get it to calm down.
Really?
And the other day she went in, it's just a familial thing, and it's been a problem forever. And so the other day she called Heather and she said, my blood pressure isn't normal. It went down so many points. And Heather goes, what did you do different? And she said, I spent every day in the garden. Amazing. I'll see if I can find that post, because it was really a lovely post. And I thought, you know what? That is cool.
The garden is good for whatever ails you, right?
Exactly. I think it keeps us all healthy.
Yes. So our flower is not really a flower. It's leaves. It's caladiums.
Yeah. I had this idea because right now in the height of summer, when it's super hot, my shade garden looks really beautiful with the caladiums.
Yes. And so we should say that caladiums are related to elephant ears, the alocaceae and the colocaceae in the Ariaceae family. If I could have a moment of botanical privilege to say all that.
I like it. Well, we love colocasia or colocasia, and we love alocasia, right?
Though I'm growing neither one nor caladiums.
You're not growing either one?
No.
Gosh, I have been on a kick this year for elephant ears, as you know. So I love them in so many places. And actually, I have some elephant ears in the shade garden too. And then I have some in my Mary garden. But we aren't talking about elephant ears today. We are talking about caladiums, which grow from tubers.
That's right. And I looked up some stuff about them, and they're hardy to zone 10. So most of us are growing them as a tropical plant. And here's the other thing that I found out. This, according to Wikipedia, 98% of all caladium, and they said bulbs, even though they're tubers,
right,
come from Lake Placid, Florida.
So they have a huge tuber growing operation for caladiums for sure. And I bet you elephant ears too.
Yeah.
In Florida, which makes sense,
It does make sense. And so we grow them through the summer, and then they're not a great house plant. I'm going to say that. They're just okay because they just don't do very well. So a lot of people will lift their tubers and then save them in a cool area over the winter and then replant them again in the spring, which, by the way, I found out something else when I was looking up. I looked at a professional page from Proven Winners because I wanted to see how they describe something. And they actually paint a white dot on the top of the tuber that basically says, means this side up. Because they're not, if you've seen one, it's not easy to tell which side goes up.
No, it's not at all. You have to look for roots, and truthfully, they don't have very many roots in the dried form. And I know this for sure because this year I ordered some from a company that are called Blue Buddha Farms, and they specialize in caladiums and elephant ears and all kinds of things. And they came with that white dot on them. So I knew exactly what you were talking about. One side of them was white.
Yes.
Here's the thing. If you don't have the white dot, you can turn them on their side because they're kind of a flattened tuber. Right. If you turn them on the side, they'll find their way to the top because I've done that too. And it took my blue. So the two I bought were Flatter Me and Raspberry Moon, because there's a lot of new caladiums out.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Pretty leaves. We're all in love with pretty leaves.
Beautiful leaves. Yeah. And so it took them a while to come up because our soil was really chilly because we had such a cold spring. And I even planted them out late, waiting, because I knew, you don't want to plant them too early because they rot. So anyway, they're just super popular again. They were a really popular plant in the 50s, and then they kind of went out of style, and now they're back, and they're back in a big way. And they make a really nice contrast to coleus, hostas, all that kind of thing. And I have a link that is the prettiest caladium varieties for this year, and that's out of plants.com. And I just picked it because I was looking for my particular ones to make sure I wrote down what I bought.
So here's the thing, the cold soil in the spring problem.
Yeah.
So around these parts, I would highly recommend that you save some old gallon size, maybe tiny bit smaller containers. And I would pot them up. And if you had you don't need a big sunny spot, but if you have a place where they can get started and start growing.
Yeah, place.
Yeah, inside. And then you can take them outside gradually and, all that kind of good stuff. Because here, direct planting them in the ground, you have to wait so late that you're really probably not going to get what you think you want to get. You're not going to get that nice display right away.
Not like you do in Oklahoma. I can see that. I also bought some I think it was actually it wasn't at Lowe's. It was the other one, Home Depot. They had a whole bunch of Proven Winners varieties, and they had one that went well with my other two that I bought. And so I planted it in front of them or behind them. I can't remember which. Anyway, that has made a really nice display. And if you don't want to plant the tubers, you can usually wait and somebody has them planted up for you. And you just buy them. They're just going to last all summer. And then did we talk yet about what you do in the winter with them? I think you did, but I might be wrong.
Well, in the winter, after the first frost, you lift them up out of the ground. Actually, you do this before the first frost. They're not frost hardy at all. But you lift them up and then you dry those tubers off and then you store them. Like the website I looked at said around 65 degrees, you can store them. And so in my case, I probably could successfully store them in my garage because it's not heated, but it's well insulated and it never gets that cold in there.
That sounds good. I mean, I think I could do that. Well, mine's not insulated, so I'd have to bring them indoors. The truth is I just plant new ones every year because they aren't that expensive. And, It's just like buying another tropical plant like a begonia or something else like that.
Yeah. So as Marianne Wilburn would say, yours is a summer fling and then they're out of here.
Yeah, I have a lot of summer flings. I think some of my people that follow me think I'm really wasteful, but the truth is I want to try new things every year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
that's the way it goes.
Now, here's the other thing. Two other things we want to say. All parts of the plant are poisonous,
Right.
but no one's going to eat it.
Nope.
And then the other thing you talked about, proven winners, is doing a lot of breeding or introducing of new varieties that are bred by others.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to get the caladium to be a Christmas plant because most of the variegation is red, green, white, which is the Christmas colors,
and pink.
And so, they're trying to get it in there and it's like, oh, this would be pretty for Christmas. Look at the Christmas colors.
I think they'd be better off to make them Valentine's plants because they're heart-shaped. The leaves are heart-shaped.
Some of the leaves are heart-shaped, yes.
A lot of them. And so I would do that, but that's just my opinion. And you know what? Prune Winners doesn't ask my opinion. So there you go.
They don't ask mine either. And so I looked for these last year at Christmas time and maybe if I had gone to an actual florist instead of just like whizzing by the grocery store display, I might have seen some.
Might have.
So
I didn't.
But all right. I'll look again.
So our thought on caladiums is they make a good summer plant.
Yes.
For the shade garden.
And Dee's not buying any for Christmas.
Oh, heck no. I'm not buying. No, I got my hands full at Christmas. Okay. So you want to do the next quote?
Please.
Too many simple green salads suffer from a lack of imagination. James Beard. I'm with him.
Yes, that is true. And you were talking earlier about growing all the different colored cherry tomatoes so that you could have salads with all the different colored cherry tomatoes.
Yeah. I grew 2 big tomatoes. One was called bread and salt, which actually is heart-shaped and it's huge. I mean, this is the biggest tomato I've grown in a long time.
Uh-huh.
I probably won't grow it again, not because it isn't good. It is, but it's almost all flesh, no seed cavity. And I like a tomato that is balanced. You know what I mean? Between the two. But it's a cool tomato. And then the other big tomato I grew was Cherokee Purple.
I'm growing several big tomatoes. In fact, I picked one that it was one of the ones that Burby sent to trial, and I wrote a blog post about it, making fun of the big, the thrill of the big tomato. But anyway, I had another big tomato, and this thing was huge. I mean, it was 6 inches across, but it was so low to the ground because I'm trying that trellising method, which, by the way, I'm never doing again. And I went out there the other day, and it was just starting to turn, and the one side was red, and it had been eaten out by our critter.
As critters will do.
Yes.
Critters and tomatoes, good grief.
But we aren't talking about tomatoes.
I know. What are we doing? I'm sorry.
In honor of the moon landing being July 20th, and today's the 23rd, we thought we'd talk about rocket.
Oh, is that why we're doing it? Okay.
Well, no, because we never know what to talk about with vegetables. And I'll tell you what, you watch enough Gardener's World, and I was watching something on Instagram. Sarah Raven from Great Britain pops up, and in her top 5 vegetables to grow is rocket. And Monty Don, in the spring, the first thing he's doing, he's planting out little seedlings of rocket.
Well, Sarah Raven, I love her. So I can see why you did that. I can see why we're doing rocket. So let's talk about it quick.
Well, quick. Rocket is actually it's arugula.
Yes.
And it's got a really bizarre botanical name. Eruca vesicaria. Anyway, people say, well, how do I grow my rocket? Just like you would arugula. No, I'm just kidding. You grow it like you would a lettuce. You can seed it out early in the spring. You could seed it inside and put little plants out in the spring. Just like lettuce, when it gets hot, it's going to bolt. And then, but just like lettuce, you could sow it again in the late summer. You can sow it again. Mm-hmm. And apparently in Great Britain, and I don't know, maybe in your garden, they said if you self-sow then and let it go to seed, it will self-sow itself in the garden.
I don't know if it'll do that here or not. I haven't grown arugula that much because it's a little bit more tender I mean, not tender. It's a little bit more prone to bolt here than lettuce for me. And I'll be honest, it's not Bill's favorite thing, although he likes it better than he used to because they use it a lot in Italy. And so when we went to Italy, he ate quite a bit of it. So you can buy it. You can buy it so well in Oklahoma in those little plastic deals if you want some arugula for a specific salad.
It doesn't really taste as good in my opinion. I like it has that peppery taste. I don't like a lot of it. I just like a little of it mixed into my salad.
So are you going to grow some arugula this fall?
You know what? I think I am. The only thing is I've grown arugula more in a blend, like a mesclun blend, and it's got some arugula in it. I don't know that I've ever planted out a row and said, "Oh, look, here's my rocket." But I might try that this year just because, like you said, you want to try to grow everything. And I think I want to try to grow some rocket.
Okay. I might grow some rocket too. I don't know. I'll probably grow lettuce. I would do that this fall.
And here's the other thing about rocket. Do you ever see varieties of rocket? I only see it sold as arugula.
Yeah, no, never. And are there varieties? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Say they're sowing rocket, so I have no idea. We didn't look that up. Anyway,
we didn't. But I eat a salad every day, and I'm having to buy my lettuce now because obviously it's not grown in the garden. But I did notice some kale that I cut off because it got too big. It's starting to come back, so I should have some kale to add to my salads here soon.
Yeah, and then we also, since you brought up kale, Steve Owens at Bustani Plant Farm has a kale that he's had for a couple of years now called Prism, and it'll stay all summer long. And it's a really pretty ornamental. My only problem with it is it stinks, but it's an ornamental edible because you can eat it. It's just very heat tolerant. Yeah. I don't think it would taste very good in the summer. I think it would be too leathery, but I think it would be good in the fall. So,
well, that reminds me that pretty soon the ornamental kales and cabbages are going to start showing up at the garden centers. And I don't think I would eat any of those ornamentals because they're bred for looking good.
Yeah, no thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. Are you going to plan for fall and sow some seeds to start outside?
Maybe for arugula, but that's it.
No lettuce? You're eating a lot of salad.
No, I'm going to try it. You know what? Anything that I have leftover seeds for, I'm going to give a shout to give it a try for fall.
Basically creating your own mesclun mix.
Yeah, but in separate rows.
Oh, okay.
I'm still heartbroken over my Great Lakes lettuce that I thought I was going to have head lettuce, and then it rotted on me because it got hot or something. I want to try again.
Okay. That sounds like fun. You want to do the next quote before we go to the bookshelf?
I will. The reading of all good books is like conversation with the finest people of the past centuries. Descartes. Descartes.
No, just Descartes. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry you got that one. Onto the bookshelf.
Oh, you're so mean to me, Dee.
I am not mean.
On the bookshelf today, we have A Garden Catechism, 100 Plants in Christian Tradition and How to Grow Them by Margaret Rose Reilly. And she is an oblate of St. Benedict.
Okay.
And the book is illustrated by Mary Sprague.
And you were excited when this came. You were excited. You texted me a picture of this book. So tell me all about it because it looks good.
So, we complain about those algorithms. But for some reason, the algorithm, and I don't know if it was on Instagram or what, said, "Hey, Carol, here's a book for you." It might have been the algorithm on Amazon.
It could be because you're Catholic.
It could be for combinations of reasons. But anyway, so Margaret Rose Reilly is a Benedictine oblate, and I looked all that up. That means that she is not a nun, but she lives by the rule of St. Benedict. She's worked and volunteered in the green industry for nearly 50 years, is a certified greenhouse grower, advanced master gardener, is accredited to teach master gardeners, and has a master's degree in communications from Michigan State University. And she lives up there in Michigan.
How interesting.
It is an interesting book. And she wrote this book. And she also wrote another book that I have on my shelf. I realized it is called A Catholic Gardener's Spiritual Almanac. Cultivating Your Faith Throughout the Year. That's her book as well.
Huh.
But this book is for gardeners. And so I tagged a couple of things. So her goal in writing this, and she has 100 plants, is she wants to offset and debunk neo-pagan notions of ritualistic plant uses and reestablish Christian plant symbolism.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And so she's very much into prayer gardens and creating, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, spiritual spaces in your garden.
Right.
Spaces for contemplation and prayer. And so she goes through the 100 plants and she'll give you the Christian reference.
Right.
Which sometimes relates to Mary, the mother of Jesus. Sometimes relates to a saint. And then you can use that Christian reference then and think about that instead of whatever the pagan reference used to be.
Interesting.
So I looked up a couple of them for you and I.
Okay.
And I looked up for you zonal geraniums.
Oh, thanks. Because I do love a good pelargonium.
And so I won't read the whole thing, but the white geranium especially symbolizes purity as well as a spiritual life and is used at weddings signifying conjugal happiness and fruitfulness.
Nice.
It says one of the monikers for the white flowering geranium is beautiful lady, which fits well when this flower is used in a bride's bouquet.
Nice.
So anyway, I thought that was really nice. And then guess what plant I looked up for me?
Pansies or violas.
I looked up violet.
Which is a viola. Okay, keep going.
And I won't read the whole thing, but here's something, and you'll never forget this now that I tell you.
Okay.
According to another legend, the violet is one of the flowers upon which the shadow of the cross fell. In acknowledgement of the event, the violet drooped its head in sorrow. Its purple bloom is reminiscent of the church in mourning.
Interesting.
How about that?
Yeah, because they're purple too, and so purple's Lent and Advent.
Yeah, I looked up I did not look up pansy. I looked up violets. That's my go-to plant to look up.
That's a cool book.
And she doesn't have pansies listed.
Yeah, because she would just consider it part of the violet group. Probably.
And then the other thing that I looked up, because it made me think of it, when I wrote an article about growing mistletoe, should you try to grow mistletoe for family handyman?
No. Yes.
I mean, mistletoe is very much associated with pagan religion and all that stuff.
But it's also everlasting life because it's green.
They said that you won't find mistletoe brought into a church because it is so tied to the pagans.
That's interesting.
That is very interesting. So anyway, she has in addition to the plants, she has a Christian reference for them. She has cultural information for every single plant, which is kind of nice. She has a little bit of information about garden design and how you might design like a prayer garden or whatever. She's got some basic gardening information in the back, lots of footnotes, a couple of tables in case you have a particular plant you want to look up. And then types of gardens. And she talks about, let me go back to that part. So if you want to create a little shrine in your garden, or she talks about labyrinths, which are really more Christian in nature, a rosary garden with rosary garden colors, Stations of the Cross, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, it's a very lovely book. I'm going to show it to you again.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
A Garden Catechism, 100 Plants in Christian Tradition and How to Grow Them by Margaret Rose Reilly.
That's interesting. Cool.
It is interesting. Next quote.
Garden as though you will live forever. William Kent. And this is our dirt topic. And we both, do you want to start this about saving sweet pea seeds?
Well, it all started when we got a email from Floret Farm about sweet peas. And I sent it on to you because you had mentioned in a previous episode that you were going to save some of your sweet pea seeds this year. Mm-hmm. And since mine are still blooming like crazy out there, they are setting seed. Yep. I decided to save some of my seeds as well. And so Floret in her email said that the future of sweet peas has become dire, in her words.
Yeah, they're endangered, which I had no idea they were endangered.
No.
So there have been some droughts, some wildfires, some bad weather in traditional places where they grow sweet peas and grow them for seed. And so in that email, she talked about how they are taking their plant sale their seed sale, and they're devoting a lot of this fall seed sale, which will be their only seed sale. It starts in August. They're devoting a lot of it to sweet peas, and they're actually pulling a bunch of stuff out of their freezers because sweet peas are one of those seeds, like tomato seeds, that you can keep for a long time. So I went and looked at the pre-sale, and I think there's 20 something varieties of sweet peas that she's offering for sale. And her idea is to get more sweet peas in the hands of other people, other gardeners, flower farmers, etc., so that we can keep them going. And sweet peas are self-fertile. Isn't that the right terminology?
Yes.
Yeah. So they don't mix. So I actually have the ones that I got from Baker Creek, which are light pink, and they've produced seed, and I've just been waiting for the seed to dry. And in fact, I think it is dry now. So I'm going to walk out there after this deal, if I've got time, and put some in my envelopes to save for next year. And then I'm actually going to buy some sweet peas at Floret's sale.
Cool. When you said self-fertile, it's self-pollinated.
Yeah, I said the wrong thing. Self-pollinating. Yeah.
I have a bunch from 2 packets that I bought, and I'm going to save some of them, but there are a bunch that are red, and I'm not in love with the red ones.
Yeah.
And there are some that have broken colors. So they're like a mottled red or not red, but white and purple. I want to save those. So I really need to go out and tag some stems and say, save this one, save this one, save this one. I don't need tons of seeds.
You know what you could do is just do little twist ties on them so that you know which ones you want to save.
That's what it's going to do.
That'd be the easiest way to do it. So if you have sweet peas and you're growing sweet peas, you might want to save some of your seed because it's going to be more hit and miss than usual.
Yes. So anyway, that was our dirt, was seed saving. And it's not hard. You just wait till she was going to put a tutorial out. And so we'll watch for that tutorial. And if it comes out fairly soon, we'll link to it. Yeah. But it's just like, once the seed pod dries, pick it and there you go.
Well, mine are already started to dry and are thinking about popping open. So I need to get out there and save them. So they're easy to save. Big, huge. They're like saving 4 o'clock seeds. 4 o'clocks are another one that are super easy to save. Oh, and I bought some seeds from Nan Andra because, she's the queen of seed saving. And I'm sitting here thinking, where did I put those? Because they're interesting things that I'm going to winter sow this year. So we're going to have a link in the newsletter, the Substack newsletter everybody should be a part of. And it will be her sweet pea information. And we can also, in it is a deal about her sale. So that brings us to our rabbit holes. And my rabbit hole is also about Floret. I was going to talk about that today. Is that okay?
It is perfectly good, but I need to do that quote, don't I?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, can we talk about a topic without the quote first?
No.
A garden is always a series of losses set against a few triumphs, like life itself. May Sarton.
At 70 a journal.
Yeah, at 70 a journal.
So that brings us to our dirt. And this was where I was going to talk about this, right? Because I didn't write anything down, people. Okay. So I had some hot days, which next week's going to be hot too. And I sat down to watch season 2 of Growing Floret. I did not like season 1 very much. And so I hadn't really made it a priority to watch it, not because I don't like Aaron or Chris. I think they're wonderful people. And I think they've done a lot for the flower industry, but I just didn't like the format. It just seemed like every other show. You know what I mean? Well,
yes.
Season 2 is not like every other show. Season 2 touched me so deeply that it caused me to write a blog post about aging, about how there's not enough time. Because if there's a theme to this particular this particular season, which is 4 episodes, it's that there's not enough time. And she is basically musing through the whole thing. The first episode was about trying to get her friend's her friend Anne, who was the queen of rambling roses. And she had gotten to be 97 years old. And so Floret and her crew went down there and took a ton of cuttings So that's episode 1. And she actually wrote about it on her blog. And you can find all these links in my latest blog post. And then episode 2, I don't remember what it was about right now. Episode 2 might have been about propagating those roses. Maybe. Let me look and see. So it just touched me deeply because she also interviewed a guy named Greg Lowry. Is that right, Greg Lowry?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, good, because I'm doing all this from memory. All right, so she interviewed him, and actually, we are going to have a bunch of his quotes in next week's episode because I wrote them all down and put them in the sidebar. And it was just about, he's a guy who has saved a bunch of really wonderful roses that are not ramblers. And they're all like 18th and 19th century roses. Okay. And so with Aaron and Chris Benzikin being in their 40s, they feel the clock ticking just like I do. And so I just thought it was just so interesting. Yeah, Greg Lowry. He's championed old roses for years, and he has something called the Friends of Vintage Roses. And so she's trying to teach people more about gardening, and she does all of these. I think the 3rd episode was about all the people that she gives scholarships to take her classes. And not only do they give them scholarships, they get to meet with her. And she is a very busy person. I don't think people realize how busy she is, and she gets overwhelmed. And I understand that too, because, when you communicate about gardening and you're trying to do it in many different areas, you can feel really overwhelmed, especially if you try to answer all the questions. So that one was about that and about inspiring young new farmers. And it was so deeply touching, the people they chose and why they chose them. Okay. And then the last episode was about where does she want the farm to go from here? It's about what kind of legacy do you want to leave? And I think our listeners could think about that too. So my advice is it's one of the best things in gardening television right now. And you can get it on Discovery Plus, Max, and Magnolia. Those are the places it's at. And I liked it because I forgot to mention the online library. I think that was episode 2 or 3. Anyway, one of them was about the online library of plants. And she's taken all the information that she has in books, because one of the things that made her sad about Anne's stuff is that she had written all this stuff down in books, but she didn't have it anywhere that people could read it other than the books she wrote. Right. And so Erin felt the same way. So she created this gigantic library for flower farmers, gardeners, everybody else. It's right on the website. I went and looked at it. It's really well done, and it's free. It's completely free. And that was one of her big things, is she feels like the gates have really been closed and she wants to open the gates. But that's changed her flower sale, the seed sale, because even though they make a lot of money selling seeds, it takes a lot of work. And in the last episode, you get to see how much work it takes. And the lady who's in charge of it all, who's fabulous, by the way, I can't remember her name right now, but she's fabulous. She's having a baby. And so that's why they're doing it in the fall, and there won't be a seed sale in the spring unless something changes.
Wow, that's quite the rabbit hole.
Sorry, it was a big one. Next.
So my rabbit hole is, I remember a while back, I told you that on my list for Lost Ladies of Garden Writing was a woman named Hannah Ryan, Rion.
Yes.
And you might recall the quote, "The greatest gift of the garden is the restoration of the 5 senses."
Yes.
That's Hannah Ryan.
Really?
And so she was on my list, and I had done nothing but figure out that I have her book, Let's Make a Flower Garden, that she wrote in 1912.
Yeah.
And she wrote another book. Her first book was The Garden in the Wilderness in 1909, which I'd read a little bit of it online in the past. But I had not gotten to searching anything about her. And one Google search would probably bring up a Wikipedia entry. But Kathy Jentz of Washington Gardener sends me this email one day, and she said, "Do you know who Hannah Ryan is?" And I said, "Yeah, she's on my list." Well, this guy named Kit McMaster III has written a biography of Hannah Ryan called Her Life and Writings.
Huh. What got him started?
You know what? I am not sure. But you and I talked about her a couple of episodes ago because she came up with, or she wrote a book on twilight sleep for birthing mothers.
Yeah, which was crazy, right? Yeah.
So I am this afternoon away from being done with this book. The woman only lived 50 years. But in that 50 years, she was a painter. And so people still collect her paintings. She was a musician. She had several songs published and was an excellent pianist. She lived in New York, which is where the Wilderness Garden was. And then she and her husband moved to Bermuda, as one does. Guess who her good friend in Bermuda was?
Who?
Frances Burnett Hodgson.
Of course she was.
Who wrote The Secret Garden, because she lived in Bermuda in the wintertime.
She did.
And then they went to England. She spent all of World War I in England.
Oh.
Not
the easiest place to live. Easier than France, but not
the
easy.
war hadn't started, but they had gone over there with her daughter from her first of 3 marriages. They talked about how she got a divorce in the late 1800s when, like, she was from South Carolina, and they didn't allow you to be divorced. It was just not an option, period.
Right.
But she got a divorce in North Dakota, I think. But anyway, I'm almost
Anna makes
done.
me feel like a slouch.
Oh, when you, yeah. And so the thing is, she was married 3 times, twice divorced, and her third husband was an artist like her, and that stuck. But the whole time I'm thinking, so they bought a property and they had a garden, and in New York, like an hour's train ride or something from New York City on the other side of the Hudson. Moved to Bermuda, went over to England, stayed in England, ended up basically, I don't want to say stuck, but they ended up staying through World War I. And the whole time I'm thinking, where's the money? Her husband was a famous illustrator, by the way. And so people who collect,
well, they make good money.
Well, people who collect old children's books would no doubt have run into his children's books from the early 1900s.
Do you remember his name?
Yeah.
There used to be more money in publishing back in the day.
There must have been. His name was Frank. What can I remember? I've been reading it this whole time. Frank Verbeek.
Interesting.
So yeah, they must have made money off their paintings and his illustrations. And she wrote tons of, in addition to the 2 gardening books and the book on twilight sleep for women in labor, tons of illustrations and things. So they made money that way, I guess.
Wow. Good for them. Well, they had money from somewhere because, they lived quite an exciting life.
Anyway, I'll probably still write a blog post about her because she is interesting. And, she wouldn't necessarily, I like to find ones that there's no Wikipedia entry for. And I know there's a Wikipedia entry for her. I can almost guarantee there is.
Yeah, but she's just fascinating because she did so many
she is
things.
fascinating. It's just an amazing biography to read.
You know the term Renaissance man?
That I was thinking about that. She's a Renaissance woman.
She is, for sure.
Oh, and
wow, cool.
She wrote in a Zeppelin.
Of course she did. Yes.
Well, and she did it as kind of a journalist in Germany before the war. She was over there touring Europe. And they were taking her up, and she thought she was going to go up with a whole bunch of people. And they said, no, just you and the waiter and the pilot and everybody and the co-pilot. So she went for an hour and a half ride in one of these things. I mean, these things exploded all the time and people died, but.
Yeah, because they were filled with hydrogen, the German ones.
Yeah. And so she wrote up in one of those and wrote about that experience. And anyway, but the guy, whoever wrote this, I mean, he did his homework. There are footnotes, and I'll tell you, he's a retired pathologist who currently resides in West Columbia, South Carolina.
I'm sorry, but that just makes me laugh. A retired pathologist who wrote this book on this woman. I have no idea why, but great.
I don't either. And, he practiced medicine for many years. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fascinating. It is fascinating. I don't know. It doesn't say, well, he's related, because she was the youngest of 7 siblings by far. the youngest. I think the next.
Boy, we had some rabbit holes this
Oh my
week.
gosh. Anyway, I'll finish that rabbit hole this afternoon. What you doing in the
Cool.
garden this week, Dee?
I'm going to keep my drip containers, keep my containers that are not on drip watered. If I can do that every morning, I'm doing good. And then on top of that, which is why most of them are on drip. But my pelargoniums aren't because they're in too small containers because they're really just specimen plants. Also, I planted, you remember those seeds, those zinnia seeds I bought from the farm? Yeah. They're up in my little garden outside my kitchen door, my kitchen border. Well, they came up unevenly as zinnia seeds do. So I need to go out there right after this and dig them up very quickly and put them where they need to be so that it's more of a grouping instead of being like all of them in a clump over here and none over here.
Yeah.
So that's my plan. And then, just keep all of my annual flowers deadheaded and keep cutting them for the vase because that's how you keep them blooming until fall. And weed and harvest. That's it.
Yeah. It's going to get hot here this coming week. And I'm going to say it's the first really hot week we've had all summer. We've had a day where it went up to 90, but this is like several days in a row. So first thing in the morning, make sure everything's watered, checking again in the evening for the smaller containers. I do find that the more the garden grows, the less I'm worried about all the weeds in between. I'm going to get the obvious ones.
Well, they don't even show up that much because of green mulch. Because when you put stuff close together, it crowds out the weeds. So most of mine is pretty much on, except for that one weed. You know, that one, the mulberry weed from China.
Oh yeah. That's starting to show up. I hate that. Hates it.
Oh, I hate that weed. It's the pits.
It is horrible.
Anyway, that's all.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up then. Thank you for listening to the Garden Angelist. I hope you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern time.
And if you listen to Apple Podcasts, we'd love a 5-star review that helps us get noticed by others. Could you also share our podcast with your friends? Word of mouth is still the best way to get the word out there.
And be sure and check out our show notes for links for more information about today's topics, plus links to our own websites.
And subscribe to our Substack newsletter, The Garden Angelist at Substack.com. Also linked to in our show notes. If you do, you get a link to listen to the podcast a day early.
And if you want to help support us, use those affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we're in a small commission and it costs you nothing. Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the garden gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.